Hello and welcome to this edition of Reporters, the magazine that brings you some of France 24's best reports from our correspondents around the world. Well, this week we take you to India for a closer look at the exiled Tibetan community. Tens of thousands of Tibetans live in the country. They came nearly 50 years ago after a failed anti-China uprising. Well, Tibet's spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, set up a government in exile. Accused by Beijing as a separatist, he's revered as a hero by many of his people. But there are cracks at the heart of this community. Some Tibetans no longer believe in the Dalai Lama. They've chosen to follow the Buddhist god Dorje Shugden. The Dalai Lama accuses Shugden of being a devil and his followers of siding with China, betraying the Tibetan struggle. Well, our correspondents Capucine Henry and Nicolas Ack bring us this report.
At first glance, nothing distinguishes this Buddhist monk from another one. Yet he is a pariah. Dalatang is a Shugden monk, and the god he reveres is considered as a demon by the Dalai Lama himself. Since the past 2 months, in this village of Tibetan refugees in South India, all doors have been closed to him and to all the members of his community.
Look what's written here. Shugden worshippers cannot enter this shop. Good morning, can I come in? I'm a Shugden follower.
No, we have sworn to renounce the practice of Shugden. I promise to His Holiness the Dalai Lama not to have anything to do with Shugden practitioners. They have been harming the Tibetan cause.
Within a few months, this peaceful village shunned a part of its population. In the streets, witch hunts are the order of the day, with portraits of Shugden leaders pasted on the walls like outlaws.
Look, they have just put up their photos on the wall.
They are banned from entering not only shops, but also public institutions.
Yeah, you see this one. What is it? This is oath. So if you even take oath, don't come in this hospital.
It's apartheid on Buddhist land.
We're both monks. As Buddhist monks, you should be ashamed to be against the Dalai Lama in these crucial times. The Dalai Lama is our only pillar. He's the only person we can depend on.
Not at all. We're not violating his teachings. We are thrown out everywhere, just for our religion.
And you're flouting the Buddhist teachings. You have no business being here. You believe in the demon. Get out of here.
Quite obviously, the attention we are paying to the Shugdens disturbs them.
This is a hotly debated issue. Filming is not forbidden, but filming these people could create a lot of problems. Be careful about what you say to them. We're living in critical times.
No, I'm asking. I'll give you a problem if you do. I say, when I'm refusing all these things, why you are taking again and again?
How did things come to this pass? On the 7th of January, the Dalai Lama delivered a speech that brooked no opposition in this Tibetan university in South India. In front of hundreds of monks, he condemned the Shugden movement and its practitioners.
I did not put aside the Shugdens for my personal interest. I have meditated and considered this at length in my soul and my spirit, before coming to the conclusion that this is the right decision. People have killed, lied, fought each other and started fires in the name of this deity. These monks must be expelled from all monasteries without any hesitation. If they are not happy, you can tell them that the Dalai Lama himself asked that this be done, and it's very urgent.
A key moment in the history of Tibetan Buddhism and the beginning of a separation which could exclude 4 million Tibetans practicing this religion.
Aren't you ashamed to bring us such trouble? Get them to go. Get rid of them.
A few weeks after the Dalai Lama's speech, Shugden monks could no longer enter monasteries. They were to regroup themselves away from the monastery. Henceforth, they would be regarded as rebels, traitors who turned their backs on their master. Their fault, choosing to worship this idol, a demonic spirit, contrary to Buddhism, according to the Dalai Lama. This morning, young monks are following the Buddhist practice of questions and answers. For some time, these oratorial exercises have been coming back to the decision of their spiritual leader, which they have failed to understand.
Will the Dalai Lama really manage to ban a religion?
He won't be able to because we're in the right. So he won't be able to do that. It is he who is inconsistent.
On the one hand, the Dalai Lama speaks all the time of freedom of religious expression and compassion, and on the other, he forbids us from practicing our religion and throws us out of monasteries. It's inconsistent. We don't believe in him anymore. He is no longer our master.
Yes, the Dalai Lama is a spiritual leader, but behind the face of this holy man lies a political leader, and particularly at this moment, so we can no longer believe him.
Suspicions against the Dalai Lama. Are his demons more political than spiritual? The answer can be found at Dharamsala, North India, the home place of the Dalai Lama. It is here that he lives, in this monastery, since he escaped from Tibet 50 years ago. This is also where the Tibetan government in exile is. For the Prime Minister, the Shugden are first of all political enemies, enemies from within.
The Shugden people and China has a link that is ample evidence. Shugden followers all over the world, including the United States, they are all being supported and financed by PRC. People are frightened and scared because a lot of Shugden perpetrators have become terrorists, and they are willing to kill anybody. They are willing to beat up anybody. There are so many cases has been beating up and killing and arsoning, and all these cases are there. These are known to everyone.
Where are we going?
To convince us further, he leads us to an old chamber converted to a museum, a sort of museum of horrors dedicated to a great Buddhist master in 1997. This monk has dedicated his life and work to the denunciation of the Shugden spirit. For the pro-Dalai Lama, the Shugden's guilt is beyond any measure of doubt.
Two worshippers of Shugden came here and they murdered him very badly. You can see the pictures there. And then two students along with the master was killed. You can see the strapped on the stomach. We want to know all over the world that they can do things like this.
The Shugden are all political traitors on the Chinese payroll, according to those close to the Dalai Lama. The Tibetan intelligence agencies are looking for proof. In this photo, the security chief shows us the back of a man, a very influential Shugden.
He is one of the stalwarts of the Shugden propagator, and he is a main funder for the Shugden activities in India or elsewhere in the world. On the same day, Dalai Lama Lobsang Ishi, this one, every year Chinese embassy, they organize a party to their contacts. At that time he was there. He has been associated with Shugden cause since a very long time and has been visiting China. Twice or thrice. For 3 times I think he has visited China. So he is being used by Chinese for their political ends.
We met the man on the photo. He lives in South India, close to the rebel monastery, with 10 other disciples. He too has declared war. He has just filed a complaint against the Dalai Lama at the Indian High Court on grounds of religious persecution. Is he acting alone or at somebody else's orders? He denies working for the Chinese, but does not hide the fact that he has Chinese friends.
What can be done? Definitely I'm appreciative of the Chinese, and I'm appreciative of what they are doing in Tibet. Why? Because under the current circumstances of what we've experienced with the Dalai Lama, we can easily guess that what he and his theocracy was in the past could have been much more brutal than what it is right now. And if we would have to live our life with him, we would have possibly been crucified.
To the Tibetan Inquisition, he contrasts the clemency of the Chinese rulers. The violence which went hand in hand with the invasion of Tibet are practically just a detail for him.
When we are talking about the excesses of cultural revolution, you should look at that so-called particular excess was even much more severe in mainland China than of that in Tibetan hinterland itself. What happened in Tibetan hinterland was not as severe as what happened in mainland China. Regardless of what had happened, due to the craze, due to the over-enthusiasm, political revolutions without mistakes is not possible. Look at all other revolutions and the French Revolution itself as such.
Demons operating with China against the Dalai Lama, authoritarian and aggressive. War has been declared and the collateral victims are already numerous, struck even in their exile. In India, the worshippers of the Shungden deity are forced to go into hiding. This old woman had to flee her village because she felt threatened. She found shelter 300 kilometers away from her place in this family.
I took all my baggage, locked my house, and fled 3 days ago. I had no choice being the lone Shugden in my village. I have had a lot of problems. I couldn't sleep before 2 o'clock at night. I had to lock the door and place heavy rocks and wood against it to be sure no one could attack me. I kept locking my door so many times.
Before, we also used to have faith in him, in Dalai Lama. Even we all had faith in him. But now she feels like every one of us feel that, if he's really Buddha, if he's really God, he won't create so much problem, he won't give us so much trouble, he won't, I believe if he's a Buddha, he won't give any problem to any human being, so we feel that, I think all of us have changed our mind now. We don't see him as we have seen him earlier,
They have been practicing this faith in private, far away from political considerations, but now politics have caught up with them. Behind this witch hunt of Shugdens lies the fear of Chinese infiltration in the ranks of the Tibetan refugees, and the looming threat of a schism dangerous for the fight for the autonomy of Tibet.
Well, joining me in the studio is one of the reporters behind that story, Capucine Henri. Capucine, tell us a bit more about the political side of the Dalai Lama that you discovered.
The whole world knows His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who speaks of duality Buddhism, the spiritual figure. But the Dalai Lama is also a political figure. He's at the head of the Tibetan government in exile in Dharamsala in India. He's a political leader of 100,000 Tibetans who live in India since '59. So it's not very Buddhist what I'm going to say, but the Tibetan government in exile is at war with China. And to be more politically correct, I might say that the Chinese leaders are the opponents of the Dalai Lama, who finds it very difficult to accept that within his own community of followers there are Tibetan Buddhists who are related to China. But there is a community of Tibetan Buddhists who is linked to China. They are called the Dorje Shugden community because they follow a god or a figure of the traditional Tibetan Buddhism. And it's through them that I realized that the Dalai Lama is a political leader, because instead of actually negotiating with China, the Dalai Lama started banning them. He forbid these people to follow their own cult. He asked his own people to stop having any connection with the people who follow the Dorje Shugden cult. He said that his movement actually jeopardized the unity of the Tibetan people. So very concretely, what did he do? He circulated petitions to India in monasteries and Tibetan communities, and he asked the people to choose between the Dorje Shugden community and his community. Those who decided to run against him and follow the Dorje Shugden community are banned by the Dalai Lama. That's what we're going to see right now.
So one interesting aspect, of course, is that the Dalai Lama, of course, also accuses the Shugden community of having links with China. Is there anything in that?
Yes, quite so. The Dorje Shugden community does have ties with China, political ties. They're closer, politically speaking, to the Chinese political power than to the Dalai Lama. They've actually accepted the fact that Tibet is a Chinese province, and they have accepted that they are Chinese. But there are many people who actually believe that in Tibet and in exile. In France, we always tend to associate Tibet to the Dalai Lama, but there are many Tibetans who are Buddhists who think that China actually contributed something to Tibet. Now, let us not forget that the Dalai Lama went to India 50 years ago, and that in India there's a whole generation of Tibetans who grew up with the Chinese, and they think that the Chinese did contribute something to Tibet.
So, very, very briefly, just how taboo is it to criticize the Dalai Lama?
It is very taboo. Actually, our shooting of the reportage was very difficult because we had our camera smashed in, and the Dalai Lama is considered as a living god. He has achieved, well, supposedly, a level of clairvoyance that makes every decision he takes rule of law. If you criticize the Dalai Lama, you are judged to be a Chinese spy and somebody who runs against the cause of Tibet.
Capucine Henri, thank you very much indeed for that fascinating look from India behind the Tibetan community there. That's it for now. More reporters next week.